It was all-out attack for the Junglists. Mobe shoot down the Phoenix, and Captain Fantastic leave more pleasant once again. But we start one place and one place only, and that's at the Anthony Sporting Complex, where Waterhouse got by the skin of their teeth. This is Match Week 1 Review Show. Yeah, people, welcome back to Champion Fun, and as you can see, we finally get to talk about some football. Match Week 1 is in the books, and we have 5 games to get through. As promised, we're going to start at the Anthony Sporting Complex for the last game of the round, as Waterhouse were taking on newcomers Racing United. For this game, Waterhouse was looking completely different up front. They gave a debut for Atterbury Bygrave, Martin Davis, and of course Gibson was on the left wing. The other real surprise in the starting lineup is that Siobhan Amos came in and replaced Christopher Matthews at the back. As for Racing, of course there was no Raheem Edwards, so Ronaldo Biggs was the one that was tasked with getting the goals. When the game kicked off, Waterhouse looked like they were still shaking off the rust, while Racing came with a clear plans, it seemed, to sit in shape and make life difficult for Waterhouse. Waterhouse was having difficulty connecting passes in the first 10 minutes, while Racing was just trying to spring on the counter on the opposite side. But eventually Waterhouse finding footing. Martin Davis was coming into the game and he did well to create the first chance for Waterhouse when he floated this ball in, while Bygrave just couldn't get it on target. But Bygrave was warming up to have one of those nights, and he will be matched when he came up against Caroline Holmes in the Racing goal. The rest of the half was going to come down to one of the greatest forward versus keeper battles we have seen in the local league. Shots after shots, saves after saves were coming up, as Bygrave was cursing his luck as often he was found free in the box, he ended up finding the palms of Holmes. And even when the keeper couldn't get the work done, his defender would find a way to sacrifice his leg and get the ball away from his goal. But one thing can be said that Waterhouse was definitely cooking now. Denard Thomas' influence was really showing, and the constant overlapping from both Blair and Dallas was proving very difficult to maintain for the Racing back line. But again, Holmes came up trumps. This was absolutely one of the best saves I've seen in the JPL when he got this one away from Bygrave once more and kept things unlocked for 0-0 going into the half. Second half came about, not much change from either side, but Waterhouse again were looking to try and get an early goal, get the goal that they think they deserve. While on the other side, Racing started the second half much more positive, much more braver. They were now holding onto the ball much better. Now they were looking more confident to try to break the lines and connect passes. Their number 10, Nathaniel Ellis, was definitely their shining light. He was definitely the brightest spark for them in attack, and he was trying his best to unlock that Waterhouse back line. But funny enough, again slightly against the run of play, Waterhouse was up the other end and have a distilled session of pressure. And when a nothing shot came from outside the box, it actually deflected into the path of Bygrave, who finally saw one of his shots not stopped by Holmes, and he went into the goal. A much deserved lead by Waterhouse, 1-0. You could say that was a bit harsh on Racing, who was finally growing some confidence in the second half. And credit to them, they didn't drop their heads. They started playing with even more hunger. They were now exerting enough pressure on Waterhouse, and so much so that you felt like a goal was coming. It should have happened after this great ball in behind by Biggs, which caused Cameron Foster to cause a penalty, and now there was a chance for Racing to get back in it. Former Waterhouse player Murray stepped up, but he had a tame shot that was easily saved by Cameron Foster. It's another disappointing moment again for Racing, but again they seem to have lion heart in this one. They came again with ways of attack. Javon Cole was into the team at this point, and he was trying to create some spark and link up with Ellis in midfield, and there were no finally getting shut off on the goal. You felt that this pressure could not last for Waterhouse and they would eventually concede, but it seemed that they were a shadow of themselves that was in the first half, and they couldn't get anything mustering going on the other way. It was ways and ways of Racing pressure, and you felt as close and closer they get towards goal, you just felt that it was not going to be their night. But Waterhouse was definitely riding luck, and into the last minute of the game, a ball that caused confusion in the box ended up reaching the back post, and the player just could not get his shot on frame, and it was on for safety. A big relief for Waterhouse, but pure frustration for Racing United and their fans. So Waterhouse basically escaped by the skin of the teeth, and the game ended 1-0. But let's look at the start and see what it had to say. Alright, so in terms of total shots, they were pretty even. 10 for Waterhouse, and again, majority of this was in the first 60 minutes of the game as they dominated. Bygrave alone probably have 6 or 7 of those, and 10 for Racing United. Again, most of theirs come towards the last 5-10 minutes of the game. 5 shots on target for Waterhouse, and 4 of those was brilliantly saved by Holmes. Racing only managed 2 shots on target, as again they were just lacking accuracy. 3 corners to Waterhouse, 1 to Racing, 3 yellow cards apiece. The game was a bit chippy in the first half, but it died out in the second half. So yeah, that's basically what the game was in stats. It cannot rightfully reflect the game. Waterhouse controlled the majority of the game, but their enthusiasm died in the last part of the second half, and Racing took over as they tried their best to claw back into the game. Racing fans were probably wondering, after seeing chances after chances being spared, what a difference Edwards could have made in this team. It was never to be though. It was one of those nights, and Waterhouse really escaped by the skin of their teeth. So that was the New Boys Racing first time out. How did their fellow promoted team, Chapelton Maroons, did? They played in the earlier game as they took on Harbour at Anthony Spawning Complex. In terms of the lineup, Harbour kept Portmore in goal and saw attacking trio of Brown, Robinson and Thompson up front, while Chapelton Maroons looked almost unrecognizable from the Tier 2 team, as they were debuts with Demar Deacon, Vanzi, Austin, Chennai, Evans and many others. When the game kicked off, the Chapelton Maroons were trying to keep possession at the back and then try to feel them rhythm into the game, while Harvey actually went on the front foot and got a good chance to even got the goal scoring off early. But thanks to some nifty work on the line, ball was cleared on the line and kept Chapelton in the game. That kind of woke up the Maroons, and it basically started to get their passing game flowing. I questioned in the preview what kind of system or style of play Bigger Thompson was going to come with, and we basically get that answer within the first 6 minutes. Chapelton will definitely be a build from the back team, and they look silky smooth doing it, as they were able to bypass many of Harbor's lazy pressing. But despite it all, Harbour did look fairly comfortable, like they weren't going to concede anything, and then in 10th minute, their goalkeeper issue that Harbour had all of last season reared its ugly head again. A simple ball was floated in, and while the defender should have cleared it, the ball gently bounced into the arms of Palmer, who literally just spilled the ball in front of him, and it was Super Javel Ellis to give the Maroons the early lead. Yes, he could feel sorry for him that the defender who was just in front of him basically went half-hearted at the ball, but again at this level, those mistakes should not be happening. So it basically almost felt like the same story all over again for Harbour. When they're on the attack, they want too much of a slow build-up through the middle, so they were forced many times out wide, and from there they tried to float the ball in that was just armlessly picked off by Ricketts and Austin in the Chapelton defense. While Chapelton did stick to playing their football, I was just controlling possession for the rest of the first half. So Harbour new coach Buju Henry were now already being tested in his first game, and he made what I felt was the brave move, honestly, to make a halftime substitution and bring on veteran Andre Fagan. But the Maroons were not disturbed by this, honestly, and they were still controlling proceedings. They were still carving up more of the chances and had more of the ball. But the way football is nowadays, sometimes one mistake will lead to a goal. Fagan did well to hold the ball in the middle of the park, and for the first time all game, Harvey did enough quick enough passing and movement that saw the ball head out wide left, and the ball was swing in, and it is literally bypassed everybody in the box only to reach all the way to the right wing, and it was swing in again to reach all the way to the left side just for one more square, and this time he found the head of Fagan to go in the back of the net. A bit helter-skelter, but it was effective nonetheless, and Fagan once again proved his worth as the veteran off the bench. 1-1 out of nowhere and against runner play a little bit, but credit to Chapelton, they didn't necessarily drop their heads. They came back into the game playing their style of football, as Demar Deacon continued to prove that he's a handful to contain. Him with his young captain Natalian Howe were definitely the main actors in this Chapelton movie, and their link-up play came together to give Chapelton the lead. Deacon got the ball from the right side and was looking for somebody. Eventually in the box he found his captain, whose first touch was probably not necessarily the cleanest, but his second touch definitely was. He got the ball by his defender and with a good swivel on the left foot, bam into the goal, and that was definitely Chapelton's well-deserved lead, 2-1. From there, honestly, Harbour didn't seem to really have an answer on how to get back into the game. They resorted again to try to hit the ball out wide and float it in and hope something could happen, hope Fagan could reach at the end of another one, while Chapelton came close to try to get the third, but never quite pull it off, but they did enough to ward off Harbour and complete the victory. So it was a big 3 points for the newcomers, and it was honestly well deserved. Let's look at the stats and see how the game was represented in numbers. In terms of total shots, Harbour had 10, while Chapelton Maroons had 11. They were pretty even on shots on target though. Harbour had 3, while Chapelton also had 3. 1 corners apiece, 3 yellow cards for Harbour compared to Chapelton Maroons 2. No red cards of course. As usual, I always wish these stats had possession, as it would probably skew more in the favour of the Maroons, where Bigger Thompson's football philosophy of playing out of the back was on full display, and honestly Harbour didn't do much to disturb it. So it's already a case of deja vu for Harbour View, goalkeeping errors once more, and pretty toothless up front, as they really lack any real creativity in the middle. Work for them to do unless they want another painful season once again. Now we move on to what was arguably the biggest clash of match week 1, and that was Portmore United being at home to Mount Pleasant. Now we all know the storylines leading up to this game. We all know what was the situation between both clubs, and before kickoff we were all wondering which bench Ferguson would sit on. He managed himself on the Mount Pleasant side, where they had a lineup that saw many debutants, including Joshan Anglin in the middle, Gadiel Irving, Kyle Ming, and returning Portmore favourite Alex Marshall. While the Portmore United lineup had some Mount Pleasant charm of its own, there were debuts for former Mount Pleasant players Ramon Howell, Melvin Duxley, and Tarek Zimenez. But when the game kicked off, within minutes, it was a clear sign that there was one team that already played 2 competitive games under their belt, and one team was fresh out pre-season. Mount Pleasant was quickly in a passing rhythm, and we were definitely controlling the midfield, especially Sue McCullough, who no longer have to worry about inverting from the left thanks to Gadiel Irving. We have seen this midfield trio before work to a charm in the Concacaf Caribbean Cup against Arnett, and he was doing the same again. McCullough being there gave license to Anglin to play that box-to-box role, and he was already overpowering the midfield of Portmore United. But a lot of the early damages was caused by Portmore them own self. In terms of style and formation, they look more akin to what was done by Philip Williams last season, but they could not for the life of them get into any passing rhythm, as many passes were being turned over from 5 yards out. But for all their dominance on the ball, there were never no clear-cut opportunities created by Mount Pleasant, and honestly it only took until the 26th minute, only dangerous opportunity was coming from set pieces. In fact, their first goal came just from that same side. A corner was floated in, and McCullough rose high to nod it home against his former team. 1-0, and again another important goal from the captain. But if you look carefully on the replay, it was a bit disappointing that one of the Portmore best defenders and defenders of the year, Stephen Young, allowed McCullough to get past him too easily. But that brings me to the other issue Portmore was having. The other big signing in that back three, Melvin Duxley, was also having himself a shocker. He was slow to react to many attacks, he was slow on the ball, and his passes just simply were not connected to anybody else in white in that first half. And things got even worse for him and Portmore, as the second goal for Mount Pleasant came down that side. Mount Pleasant was able to, build up play down that side, cut the ball back, get a shot off in the box, and while Tyrone Williams did enough to parry the shot, it fell kindly to Bradford, who was always a hard worker and was finally given a gift to get off the mark this season. 2-0, and I'm sure even the Portmore fans would agree it was well deserved by Mount Pleasant. Portmore were honestly just not in the races in that first half, and honestly they were a bit timid from the get-go. The only negative for Mount Pleasant in that first half is that Alex Marshall, just when he was growing into the game, was forced off with what seemed to be an ankle injury. So it was a lot of work for first-time coach Rudolph Austin to do in terms of his charges. And in the second half, again, he had to rely on some brilliant keeping from Tyrone Williams to block up Mount Pleasant from going 3 up. But after that, at least there was some fight and hunger in the Portmore players, something to give the home fans to feel good about, as they were now coming into the game much more. Again, they were trying their best to build more players, but at least the passes were connected a bit more in the second half. Zimenez, that was playing in that central attacking role, was not growing in influence, and Zane Pinnock, who was playing a weird right wing back role, finally get to not worry about his defensive duties and was pushed further up the field to try to help out the attack. But the attack again was a big issue for Portmore. It was literally nothing can be created for them despite all the huffing and puffing they were doing to try to break down that Mount Pleasant back line. Again, Stephen Barnett is a favorite of mine because he's always a hard worker, always the willing runner. But again, he shows that to rely on him all season as your main striker, you might be in problems. The other issue again is that Zimmerman is playing in the attacking midfield role, while good on the ball, never seemed to necessarily have the real vision or finesse to really unlock that Mount Pleasant back line. While Mount Pleasant, on the other hand, tired after 68 minutes and basically was no reserve to try to see out the game out. They basically did that apart from the last 5 to 10 minutes where Portmore were finally getting shots on target, but even when they managed to do so, they still could not get past the brick wall that was Shaquan Davis. All in all, the game petered out after that, and Mount Pleasant claimed the first victory of the season, and Mount Pleasant, who were on the road first time of the season, was able to claim 3 points. Alright, let's have a quick look at the stats. Portmore managed to have 6 total shots in all, while Mount Pleasant had 7. Portmore only managed 2 shots on target. Again, those came in the last 5 minutes of the game, while Mount Pleasant have 4 on target. 4 corners to Mount Pleasant, and of course they scored from one of those, while Portmore only managed 1 on return. 4 yellow cards for Portmore. They got a bit frustrated, especially in the second half, and Mount Pleasant only managed 1 yellow card. So yeah, a professional performance by Mount Pleasant. Got to go early and then coast through at the end, while Portmore have some work to do. Now, we move on to what was the first game of this new season, one that's highly anticipated, as Craig Butler's Vere Phoenix United was playing at home at the Wellness Centre of Excellence against Rodolfo Sabata's Montego Bay United. Everybody in this league was definitely eager to see Butler and Hyde's first starting 11, and in the end, it was missing some key players. Craig Butler later complained after the game that this was due to JFF restrictions, but there were still debuts given to Michael Harrison in goal, Michael Forbes in defence, and Alex Gale in midfield. While Zabata, on the other hand, basically trot out a Montego Bay United that looked a bit familiar. Most of the starting 11 were returnees from last season, but there were still debuts in goal for Aaron Inil, in defence for Jordan Brito, and of course Demar Phillips was in the middle of the park. When the game kicked off, Vere looked like Lenny Hyde's Dunbeholden of last year. They had some neat touches on the ball and they were doing some neat build-on play, but it wasn't really going anywhere or necessarily being too threatening. Montego Bay looked like they were just being cautious and seeing where this was going to play out, and they sat in a mid-block shape and they were just having a watchful eye. But funny enough, despite the lack of possession, they managed to score first. From a free kick was floated into the box, and Brito jumped highest and knocked the ball into the goal, and to give Montego Bay United first lead of the season, 1-0. Credit to Vere though, they kind of stepped up the gas a bit and they eventually got a heady goal of their own. Damian Thomas rose highest and got his head on the ball to get a good equalizer for Vere. Then, perhaps one of the strangest things I've seen in football basically happened on the sideline and at the Vere bench. It was stated long before this game that Craig Butler and Lenny Hyde will be both working and interchanging on the touchline, but to see it happen on the fly was still surprising. Butler seemed to have taken over the reins at 1-1 and was now trying to employ what seemed to be some form of zonal pressing anytime the Montego Bay United players touched the ball. It seemed to work just enough as they were able to ride out the first half to 1-1. But then the second half came about, and honestly it was all Montego Bay United at this point. They just simply turned over a new leaf. They were now the one boss in possession and had the good touches on the ball. Passing were looking clean, and Vere, with their zonal pressing, was now looking stretched in between the lines. So much so that Brian Brown in the 71st minute got acres of space to line up this shot that was well enough to get past Harrison in the Vere goal. Many neutrals would say this was well deserved, as Mobe was just absolutely dominant in the second half. Any chance for Vere to get back in the game were dashed when the penalty was drawn in the 75th minute, and Wayne Gordon stepped up to dispatch the third goal via penalty to give Montego Bay basically an unassailant lead. Things went bad to worse for Butler and co. after their new goalkeeper picked up a second yellow card and was given his marching orders, and now down to 10 men, Montego Bay pressed for a fourth. It led to another penalty, and this time newcomer Shanley Thomas came to the party, came to the spot, and dispatched for Montego Bay's fourth. One that many would say was absolutely deserved based on their second half performance alone. Let's look at this game in terms of numbers. Here's the stats. Vere had 9 total shots, which is on par with Montego Bay United's 9 total shots. 2 of those were on target by Vere, while Montego Bay United managed 3 on target. 3 corners apiece, 3 yellow cards to Vere, 2 to Montego Bay United, and of course, Vere managed to pick up 1 red card. So yeah, Montego Bay United, good form from last season, has now sprinkled over into the new one, and this has actually been their first opening day victory since their first game in the league in 2014. While Vere again echoed that they didn't have their full complement of players, and again with the league being 39 games, they will have time to get it right. But again, it shows shades of Lenny High's Dunbeholden last year, where they took some while to get used to their new possession style football and started slowly. So now we move on to our final game of the match week, and that's Arnett Guns playing at home to Dunbeholden at the Anthony Sporting Complex. Now the big talking point in this starting lineup for Arnett is that Parker Blacks was nowhere to be seen, and in his place was number 9 Warner Dwayne Brown. But it could be with their big clash in the Caribbean Cup on Thursday in Trinidad that Xavier Gilbert decided it's best to rest their number 1 striker. Philip Williams, on the other hand, brought what seemed mostly of the same nucleus of players that came from last year, but DeAndre Thomas was the one tasked with replacing Nelson Goes up front. But when the game kicked off, it seemed that Arnett was hell-bent at dragging Dunbeholden to a 100-meter sprint. The game start was a ferocious tempo, one you expect only to see in the playoffs, as Arnett and Warner Brown carved up the first chance of the game within 2 minutes when he had the shot that goes over the bar. But this was ended up proof a warning point for Dunbeholden. Them themselves were trying to keep pace with what's going on, and while they were doing some nice build-up play in the midfield, their link-up with what's going on up front was non-existent. But you expect a Philip Williams backline to be compact and not be exposed on the counter, but they failed in the 8th minute when the ball fell to the feet of Shea Smith, who was playing inverted on the right. He looked up and chipped a delightful ball for the sprinting Warner Brown, who kept his composure and find the back of the net past Damien Hyatt. A goal that was deserved after the fast start Arnett had. He didn't stop there, they were relentless. Dunbeholden was trying to take a breather at the back when the ball fell to one of the defenders, but he was pounced upon lightning quick by Warner Brown, who was able to mostly take the ball from his feet and again kept his composure and was able to find the back of the net once more. 2-0, and it already felt like game over within 10 minutes. Dunbeholden still stuck to their game plan. They were still doing some neat build-up in midfield. Again, but with the exception of Juma Johnson, they honestly looked toothless up front. They didn't carve up any real chance despite, again, Arnett defense supposedly be the weakest part of their game. But Philip Williams would have hoped that things would change in the second half. Unfortunately for him, Arnett came with the same blistering pace. I stated in the season preview for Arnett that Harbour has to return to his A game for Arnett to reach the heights that he never got last season. But he seemed that he heard the message and he was never playing one of his best football I've seen in a long time. But even I was not prepared for the type of goal he was going to score. He was able to chop the ball back on his favourite right foot, and he was able to pull off this type of shot past Damien Hyatt into the goal. It's funny that Hyatt was basically having almost a Monova-like performance despite having so much goals past him, as he spent most of the night denying many of the chances Arnett created, but there was no stopping that one. 3-0, and effectively the game was practically over at this point. Philip Williams finally gave a debut to his new Guyanese striker Nora Barrows to try to get a consolation, and that Arnett backline that we're so used to having mistakes finally gave up some late in the second half and gave a sniff at goal by Dunbeholden, but they were all stopped pretty easily by Asher Utterson. In the end, Arnett could have way more goals, but they couldn't finish their dinner. But it was enough to get them the 3 points and a clean sheet, so they move on. Let's look at the stats real quick here. Arnett had 7 according to these stats, and I honestly felt it should be way higher than that, while Dunbeholden managed 5. Most of those came in the last part of the game where Arnett took their foot off the gas. It says here Arnett had 3 shots on target, and I think it's a miscalculation because, as I said, Damien Hyatt actually had a blinder despite leaking 3 goals, while Dunbeholden managed 2 on target themselves. 1 corner to Arnett, 3 to Dunbeholden, 1 yellow card apiece. So yeah, a great start by Arnett. They played some of the best football again in this league, and they was on full display again here. They're definitely one of the entertainers in this league. So if you're a neutral, Arnett Gardens matches are the one you should watch. Yeah, they should have 6 or 7 goals, but at the end of the day, they still found 3, and they should be pretty happy. While Dunbeholden can worry a bit, the same issues they had last year, good football in the middle, big toothless up front, where this ugly head again. They definitely need to find a way to create more chances, be more goal dangerous, and maybe they're coming from starting Barrows next time. But alright guys, that is all 5 games of match week 1 out of the way. Wins for Montego Bay United, Mount Pleasant and Chapelton Maroons on the road. But Arnett Gardens show everybody else our home cooking is really done. But we are running out of here right now guys. Normally we would say like, subscribe, and share and all of that stuff and what you should watch next. But we're actually going to leave this on a sad note. As you can see on the screen, there was only 5 games as the Tivoli Mullines game had to be postponed due to the tragic death of former Waterhouse player and newly minted Tivoli player Dinara Daly. We would like to share the condolences to the family of the deceased as well as the Tivoli and the Waterhouse family. And we would like to end this episode with a moment of silence for one of our fallen JPL members.